couple of minutes to start recording, so I'll let you know when it comes on. Cool, so that's us. This is episode 18, I'm sure it is. Episode 18 of the NWC show. And if you'd like to introduce yourself.
This is the Suplex assassin, Alex Kane, and this podcast is about to get all of this work.
Man, I've been on a binge of your work recently. I've been checking out your stuff on YouTube, on Twitter. I realised I wasn't following you on Twitter because I've been on it for the past couple of weeks when we've been planning this, and then I was like, how am I not following this guy? I've literally been on it nearly every day. But so the first question we always kick these podcasts off with is, what got you into wrestling? What's that thing, that moment that was just like, this is my jam, this is what I need to do?
The moment that got me into wrestling was seeing, I wouldn't necessarily call it so much of a moment, but like seeing like the sets and stuff, like especially WWE. Like back in the day, their sets were always different for each show. The SmackDown Fist was awesome, but like I was interested in the sets and all the pyrotechnics that they had. I didn't really get into the wrestling until like I want to say I was like 7 or 8 years old. But at first, it was just like the pyrotechnics, like when they would have pay-per-views. I wouldn't even know what the card was. I'd just be like, let me see if I can find the set online to see what it looked like. So that was my big thing, was like the set, the entrances, stuff like that.
Man, I was pretty similar. It was like now that I think anything as you're a kid, you kind of get drawn into it with like the music, the set, the look, the colourfulness, and the pyro going off and stuff like that. You're like, what's this? This is insane to watch. But I think that's one of the best things about wrestling is it can kind of connect to anybody from like that young age. You've got like the colours, the sets, the characters, to like kind of middle group 25 to 55 when you get the wrestling and stuff like that. Then the older guys that are just kind of sitting enjoying both characters and wrestling as well, which I think's insane. So I need to ask them, where does your name come from? So where does the Suplex Assassin come from? Because it's one of the best names I've had as somebody being on this show. So where did it come from?
So I did this seminar for the show that's no longer running, and it was one of those shows where you wanted to get on, to create like a name for yourself. And I did a tryout match, and when I look back now, I wasn't ready for it, but I'm glad that I did it. So the guy gave me feedback, and he was like, "You don't have a character, you don't have charisma, all these things, all these little things." So I was like, man, I need a character. Well, people keep telling me they look at Brock Lesnar and Jeff Cobb and all these guys who just throw people. So, but I can't be them. And I have an amateur background, and so people would be like, "Oh yeah, you could be Kurt Angle." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." So I was playing, I think it was like WWE 2K17, and I was creating a character like after myself, like what I would want to look like in like wrestling gear and stuff. And I was trying to find a name for him, and I saw the Assassin. I was like, hold up, yo, this could be something. The Suplex Assassin. Yo, I had to like look online to make sure nobody else has ever done it before. And then I was like, you know what? I'm running with this. We're gonna see we'll see what happens. And then the school that I train at, we do a show every Thursday, and so I was told the announcer guy, I was like, "Yo, announce me as this. I just want to see. I want to see what it's gonna like sound like, what it's gonna feel like." And from then on, it was like I'm the Suplex Assassin.
No, man, when I seen it come up, I was like, that's such a cool name. Like it's got a ring to it. It makes sense. The character suits it as well, and it's just such a cool name. It's probably one of the coolest names from the guys that we've had on the show so far. So I had to ask where it came from. So what got you into wrestling training? For me, I was like, you know what, I want to go do something different. I went and done some wrestling classes and had a few matches and stuff like that. But it was just like to kind of do something different, push that kind of physical kind of limitations, because I'm 29. When I went to wrestling training, it was back when I was 14, 15, and it was just like full of they would make you run all day. But it was like in Scotland, it's not really like wrestling isn't, pro wrestling WWE is big, but amateur wrestling isn't really that big. and they just made you do amateur wrestling for about the first 6 months of it. So you learnt a lot of amateur background before you even done like the WWE kind of style wrestling. You really got worked really hard for the first couple of months of it. What kind of got you into taking that first steps to get into training?
Man, I was sitting in my last like college class, and I was like, I was just like, man, I don't know if I want to keep going to school, because like I was miserable. So I was like, I've always wanted to be a professional wrestler. Like I didn't necessarily know how attainable the dream or the goal was, but I was looking at wrestling schools, and um, I found like a few, but I zeroed in on the WWA4, which is Fox's school, AR Fox, and I was like, man, I got to go down here and like see what this is about. So I went down there. I talked to Fox, and I believe either that day or the next day, I started training. Paid my money, or I did it in installments, but that doesn't matter. But yeah, I paid my money and I just started. I was like, look, like this guy has a bunch of connections. He, he's I think he's wrestled just about everybody that's on television right now. Um, so it's a no-brainer to want to be trained by who I now consider one of the best or the best wrestler in the
Yeah, man, I think that's. So when about did you start training? Was it recently or was it maybe like 5, 6 years ago?
May 2018, I believe. Yeah, May 2018.
Cool. So it's a little bit more recent from when I was doing it, which is way back in like 2006 or 2006, something like that.
Oh
And it was
wow.
like, so it was a little bit different now. Like I feel wrestling training, even here in Scotland, we've got like in Glasgow, there's a big fancy school and stuff like that. But when I was younger, it was in the middle of nowhere in a garage, like, and I was I got that tail end now. The tail end stories when it's like you really got worked, like you really got just beat the shit out of and made to like run, just be sick, like just the worst period in wrestling. Like you're still getting that old school kind of feeling to it. I just remember there was about 8 of us turn up to this middle of nowhere in Scotland garage, and it was just like, okay, just run around this pitch, like the kind of place where it was, and I was like, okay, I like running, it's okay. Like when I was that age, I was just running, and everybody left. It was just me. The guy came back like an hour later, and he was like, "Man, I thought you left like everybody else." And I was like, "No, I thought I was just to keep running." And after that, he was like, "Right, we'll just got to train you up," which I thought was so cool. It was like a different way in. But then I learned, oh, we just taught you like the hard way, the hard stuff first. So like real shoot wrestling, which was, it made me fall in love with MMA and stuff like that. But in that time, I hated it because I was just getting stretched every weekend, which was terrible. What's kind of a fun story that you've got from like your kind of training experience? What's something fun that's happened to you?
Uh, I don't. It was funny. I don't. It wasn't. It wasn't fun in the moment, but it's funny to look back on. So Fox is known for his like crazy dives and stuff, and like I'd always see him do it, and I'm like, I want to know how to do it. And so we were doing dives, and they're like, okay, we're gonna catch people, and so I go to dive, and the person that's supposed to catch me, he didn't catch me because he didn't know that I was going to flip on the dive. So he just drops me and I hit the floor and it's just like bam. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk straight for like a few days. It was terrible. And I think
Man,
I had to wrestle through it the next day.
man, that does sound terrible. I remember one that I've got from like my first match or second match that I had, and it was this guy. He was so much bigger than me, and he came in and he clotheslined me, but like really as hard as he could, and he just knocked me out the ring. Like I just went flying out the ring, and I was just stood there like looking around, like what? How did I end up out here? I remember being in the ring, going to take it, like ready to fall, and just being outside. And I was like, how did this happen? And but it was pretty fun. It's cool. At the time, it wasn't fun, but like you said, like when you look back, it's like, oh, that was fun. But at the time, you're like, this is terrible. Shouldn't have happened to me.
How
So,
you're like, how in the world did I get here?
but the worst thing is like that. I think unless you've been in the wrestling ring, and obviously most people know it's worked or it's like a magician. Most people know that so far,
Uh-huh.
but you can get like, I know what I'm doing. How have I landed outside the ring? Like, and no,
Mhm.
your brain does not compute the part between like when you got hit till you go. It's just like it just shuts off, leaves you alone, and then it comes back. It's like, what are you asking me for answers for?
Yeah,
I was
you
awake.
like black out for a second.
It's such a weird like. I think a lot of people in MMA and wrestling have that kind of common experience. If you've done, well, you said you've done like amateur wrestling, so if you've been hit in the head really
Mhm.
hard, you just like your brain just shuts off for like a couple of seconds.
Yep.
You're like, what happened? Where am I? So your amateur wrestling experience, do you still use that kind of for your advantage today in your kind of professional wrestling experience?
Oh, it is a major advantage. Because like with having the amateur and collegiate background that I have, I mean, like there's a lot of guys in on the indies that have amateur backgrounds, but they don't use them for whatever reason I can't really figure out. But I mean, I guess it's good for me because it allows me to have uh like style my matches differently or go about putting my matches together differently, going through better like a different strategy than most people. Like I make it a point to touch the ropes the least amount of times as possible. Like if I don't have to touch the ropes, I'm not touching it. I try to keep everything in the center, everything on the ground, or even on our feet. Um, uh, I mean, like I said, I'll do dives if if the match calls for a dive, or it's just there and it's gonna be fun, you know, because I still like to have fun. But it the amateur background definitely helps because like with like most time in the beginning of the match, you do a lot of like chain wrestling and stuff, and like I do some pro wrestling style chaining, but a lot of mine is amateur wrestling based. And a lot of people don't see that don't see that very often. So it's always good to like shock somebody right quick. Oh, that was really cool, or I haven't seen that before.
Man, I get what you mean. Like that, I was so lucky that kind of first 6 months of the training that I done was kind of like amateur wrestling, shoot wrestling. Like I said, in Scotland, it's really hard to find like a amateur wrestling school unless you literally go out and find the school. But yeah, for me, it was learning that experience made me fall in love with MMA and got me kind of into MMA a little bit later in life. But yeah,
Mhm.
I think I don't understand why a lot of guys, I know a lot of independent wrestlers that have got amateur backgrounds or MMA backgrounds and they just don't use it. I don't know why they don't use it. They've just like it's something that you could take in. Like you were saying, the matches that I've seen, you can definitely tell that you've got that experience there, and I don't understand why a lot of people don't start taking it in. Like obviously, like you said, it's a benefit for yourself. You don't need to.
Mhm.
You're kind of standing out for everybody else, and it's kind of like a breath of fresh air. Than at the moment when it's a lot of like flips and stuff like that. It is a breath of fresh
Yeah.
air into that kind of wrestling kind of scene. But on that note, what's something that you love about today's wrestling product? So just something that you love.
I like that we're like you said, like in the beginning, like this is like it's like Broadway. It's like it's a work. Um, and I like that, you know, we want to make it we want to make all these matches look like as real as possible. Like there's sometimes I'm watching matches or whatever, and like I saw the guys put it together, but even watching it, like they for like seconds or like some moments in there, they make me like believe like that they are really like going at it. And I just I really appreciate that the wrestling today is not as toxic as it used to be. Because like some of the stories that I've heard from like 15, 16 years ago, I'm like, I probably wouldn't have stayed in the business for any longer listening to some of these stories. But I'm glad that everybody, we're young, we're hungry, and everybody's just trying to get to that next level. But nobody's like trying to like hold people back. We all want to see everybody win.
Yeah, man,
If that
definitely.
makes sense.
It 100% makes sense. I think what a lot of people are missing in wrestling just now is it's kind of like that early 1990s stage when it was a lot of young guys still coming up, which is where it is at the moment. Like there's a ton of young talent out there, like 30 under, that just are waiting to kind of get. Obviously, COVID has kind of put a big halt on everything at the minute, but there's like a ton of young talent just waiting to kind of get that next shot, which obviously there is a massive amount of talent out there, which is going to be insane. I think the next 10 years, wrestling hopefully will hit that boom period again. But
Oh yeah.
there's so much, like, you can watch an independent show and see a great match, like, and there's so much wrestling to watch. That's the thing that I love about it is, for me as a content creator on YouTube, I like talking on podcasts like this as well because it saves me talking to myself. But I can reach out to anybody. I can find a wrestling show from anywhere and kind of do a review on it, which is great for me, and I'm sure it's great for you as well, knowing that you've got so many options to go work at as well. Like when your career starts moving after COVID, obviously.
For what I mean, COVID sucks. It sucks, but I think it's been a blessing for me because I don't know if COVID never happened, if I'd be where I am right now. It would probably have taken another year or two for me to get to where I am right now. Because with COVID happening, everything getting shut down, and then only a few places opening up that kind of like shine the spotlight on those places because nobody else is open. So in order to watch independent wrestling, you had to watch those places, and that helped me a great deal because that got me seen by this gentleman named Scott Hensley, who does in the South. It's called the Cynic City Invitational. Normally, it's a tournament and like a rumble, and then they do like some like show matches. And the was it last year it was the Future Showcase. So it was all the guys that I guess he felt or the Scenic City board felt like we're going to be like future stars. Um, and I got selected for that tournament, and that put me on a lot of people's radars. I guess I could say kind of put me on the map a little bit. But from then on, it's just been building and building and building and building. I'm just earning better and better and better opportunities. So like once everything like fully opens up and we get COVID under control, I feel like it's really gonna take off.
Yeah, man, that's so cool that you've been able to take advantage of that period when the world's kind of had to sit down for a little bit. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of refreshing again. Like we've had a lot of people on that's been like, "Oh, COVID has kind of stinted their career a little bit. They were still trying to come up, or they've been kind of in that kind of spotlight, and then it's took them down a little bit." Which I think is cool to hear your kind of perspective on it. When it's like, okay, I probably wouldn't have got noticed by these type of people if we didn't have COVID, which it just makes it a little bit more kind of positive to hear as well. So on the flip side of that positivity, what's what's something that you dislike about today's wrestling community or wrestling kind of product? What's something that you dislike about it?
I don't like that guys won't just try stuff. Like that's literally what the Attitude Era was. And I know we talk a lot about the Attitude Era. The Attitude Era wrestling wasn't great. It wasn't great at all, really. But the characters were there, and they every single time they would go out and they would just try something. They just throw something at the wall and see if it sticks. That's what the people's elbow was. That's what most of the Rock stuff was anyway. He was trying to pop the boys or pop the guys in the locker room or whatever, just to have some fun, and it worked. The Spinner Rooney was just kind of the same way. Like all these iconic things that we think of today, um, were just things that they were just like, yo, let's just go out here and try this. Let's go out there and have some fun. Let's see what works. And I feel like on the indies, like so many guys, they get so caught up in, oh, well, this spot has to be really cool or these moves have to be really cool. And I tell guys all the time, your moves don't matter. They really don't. Like they're not. That's not what people are going to remember, unless it's just like a dope move. or whatever. But like most people aren't going to remember that. They're going to remember the moment, and that's one thing. I feel like people are getting better about it, but that's definitely one thing that I hope improves in the next couple years. That people focus more on the moment, that draw people in, and less about, oh, I got to run this super long sequence for no reason.
Man, I feel you in that one with the Attitude Era wrestling. I grew up at that time. When you go back and watch it, you're like, how was this even on TV? Or like, how do people rate this as good? Like Austin versus Rock, it was more the two characters that made it good than what it was. Like, obviously, you remember that moment, WrestleMania 17, probably their biggest
Mm-hmm.
match, one of the best WrestleManias in history, and it was just like such a great match. But when you really sit down and watch it, like you try to critique it, they pretty much do the same little set segment, just on the outside, the inside, then they move to the other side. Like they don't really change what they do. They've got those kind of 10 moves. They know what they're doing, and like you said, they're just there to try and make the guys in the back pop. They're there to have fun, can try and push the boundaries, and I think that's what wrestling sometimes misses a little bit. Like you said as well, they try and make it, oh, let's just have this big, massive, long set piece that nobody's really going to remember in about a couple of weeks. But if you were just like really cool character that still just went out there and had a great match, told a story, people are going to be talking about you for a couple of weeks, maybe go check you on social media and stuff like that, which I think wrestling
Yeah.
is getting, but it's missing a little bit. It's If you just look at the bigger shows like WWE, AEW, sometimes it's a lot of short-term kind of storytelling instead of from just making people be like, okay, I want to remember this guy. Probably the best one at the minute for the casual fans is like Roman Reigns. People want to watch him, remember him, just because his character looks pretty cool, and I think that's what people don't take into consideration a lot as well. Like it's not just in ring work; it is that kind of character work as well that really matters.
Yeah, you have to have, a character that you believe in. Like if if I didn't believe in in the Suplex Assassin, like I feel like people would see right through it and they'd be like, okay, this guy's lame, or it's just a name. But I believe in my character. I also had to separate my shoot self from my wrestling self. That helps a lot. But like you just gotta like believe in what you are doing because if you don't believe in it, nobody else can. And I feel that's another thing that guys really have to like hone in on. Like your spots, your sequences, they can be the coolest things ever. But if it doesn't also translate into your character, I'm gonna be turned off. I'm gonna be like, okay, yeah, okay, cool, that was great. I'm gonna go over here and eat some popcorn.
No man, 100%. You can see it as well. Like with guys, even in the kind of bigger companies, WWE and stuff like that, you will see guys that have just not bought into their character at all. They're kind of just there, like doing their moves, but it doesn't really mean anything for their character, or they just kind of
Yeah,
they just doesn't kind of. You'd be like, why is this person doing that? And the best one that you would make sense for it is if anybody wants to see a character that works as the Undertaker. That guy's sold that for everything. Like that that
yeah, he
character.
ain't gotta like when you think about it, like God, like people, everybody from Undertaker's era, like again, like the Attitude Era, like they all had four moves. They all had four moves. And I know people shit on Cena a lot. Cena had the five moves of doom, but that's all he needed. He was already over. He was going to be over. He's over the minute his name was on the card or whatever. He's going to always be over, so he doesn't have to do and try all these different things. He's set. The Rock was set. Stone Cold was set. Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Taker, Kane, all these guys were set. They only had four things to do. So in between, what their four moves were, they could get their character in, and that's what people remember about them. I don't remember that Triple H hit a spine buster or a front face drop or the pedigree even. This man is this man has bought into his character. I truly believe this man is a cerebral assassin. Get her playing mind games with people.
Yeah, man, 100%. I think as well, like you says, it was Kevin Nash was notorious for having the five moves of doom. Like literally, just he done those five: big boot, big elbow, moved around the ring,
You frozen? No. And right out here on that bull stuff. Hello, hello. Hello?